is one of the first games I bought on the PlayStation 3 besides MotorStorm. And I had a lot of hopes for this game because Factor 5 made a lot of great games for Nintendo 64 and the GameCube, and those were the Rogue Squadron games. And when I saw they were going to make a game for the PlayStation 3 that kind of followed the lines of that, I got super excited. I was like, man, I don't care if it's dragons, I prefer Star Wars, but you know, as long as it plays the same, I'll probably love it. And what they ended up doing was just going a little bit too far with the Sixaxis controls, and they really botched this game at launch. So when the game first came out, you could not steer your dragon with the joystick. You had to use the Sixaxis controls. They wanted to make it more realistic, I guess. And on paper, it sounds like it could be pretty fun. But in actuality, it was such a pain in the butt to control your dragon. It really ruined any fun you could have with the game. How I got around that is that you could actually remote into the PS3 with your PSP, because it was so much easier at the time to control your dragon with the nub instead of trying to use the Sixaxis. It was just hilarious. And I just remember just thinking, why would, you know, they have controls with the PSP nub and not the PlayStation 3 controller joysticks? It's just like, why force people to use something they don't want to use? And actually, if you watch some of the extra content, there is a video of one of the developers talking about how people really hated the controls.
So the first thing we did is just take the controller and use the tilt as a replacement for the joystick, left-right. You tilt left, you tilt right, and everyone tried it and it's like, this is crap, I don't want to play this.
At the end of the day, they took the feedback from the fans and did add that patch, but damage was done. The game ended up being Factor 5's last game. I think they put too much money into this, and ultimately with their parent company going bankrupt and this game just not doing very well, the company closed up shop, which was a shame because I really wanted a Star Wars game on the PlayStation 3. If you were to ask me if the gameplay is fun, I would give you this hesitant yes. I do like the game at times, but there's also a lot of times that it's just frustrating. Even though they did patch in joystick controls later on, it was still a chore to fly your dragon around. And I think it's because of the fact that they still had you use the Sixaxis controller for certain movements. When you want to bash into the side of a dragon, you had to like tilt your controller to the left or right. And this isn't just like a nice little tilt. This is a full-fledged, you know, really hard thrust to the left or the right. Or when you grab onto something, you gotta break it. It isn't just like a little flick here and there. This is a full force, like you're slamming the controller into your crotch type of like force you need to use for it to register. It's uncomfortable, it breaks up gameplay. It really just detracts from the fun factor. If you could just fly around, press buttons, you know, button mash, I wouldn't mind, or just, you know, a little bit of flicks here and there, it would be so much better. If you're really into the game and you feel like, man, I'm breaking this thing up or I'm bashing that dragon, it might work out for you, but for most people, it's just when you come home, you want to relax and play a game and not feel like you're just fighting the controls. You just want it to flow. Some of the cool things about the gameplay I really did like is that the fact that you can land your dragon and you can just get into the thick of it. So they'll have giant armies of people running around and you can just slaughter through them. They'll clash, like there might be two armies and they'll clash and fight and you can just get in there and just go crazy. They don't really do much damage to you or anything like that. You don't have to worry about them. But when you're in the sky, you can challenge more difficult dragons to kind of like a duel. Duels, once you get the hang of them, they are just jokingly easy. It's almost just a shame how easy they are. All you have to do is just sit there, hold down block, let them attack first, you attack back. If you feel feisty, you can attack again. Most of the time you will succeed, but if you just hit block again, let them attack them back, they're mostly just gonna let you kill them. At the end of the day, the gameplay, even though it can be enjoyable, it ends up being just more frustrating than fun. There's too many cutscene interruptions. There's too many interruptions when your dragons get into a clash. You just want to play the game and just burn stuff and, you know, fight people. But when you're constantly being berated by your team to go do your objective,
a direct order. Now follow it.
The game just feels like a chore, and it shouldn't. The graphics, if you're gonna ask me about the graphics, I would tell you, man, these graphics are actually, they look really good for one of the early PlayStation 3 titles. The problem is that they went full force into their graphics and they didn't really care about frame rate so much, and the game suffers from a terrible frame rate. You start getting into a big fight, the frame rate drops. It just makes controlling the dragon that much more difficult. It's a real shame because the game does look beautiful. Great textures, cutscenes look pretty cool. The character models, they could be better, but overall, the dragons look cool. You're constantly changing environments so it doesn't get too old, and then you got some pretty cool, unique stages. Like I remember there's one with flying around at night, and you can't be spotted, so you're trying to do a little sneaky spy mission. And then you got one where you're fighting some giant face statue thing that has spotlights and shoots dragons out of its mouth, and you're trying to go inside and kill objectives. At the end of the day, I would say the graphics are great. You know, everything looks good, but because of the terrible frame rate, it doesn't really fly with me. Pun intended.
Fighting men! We've cut off their navy. Asylians should be safe now.
Out of all the bad stuff that came out of this game, and, you know, including the company Factor 5 closing, sadly, and the parent company going bankrupt, and the fact they just wasted so much money on this game, the music is just fantastic. If you love Lord of the Rings style music, you will love this soundtrack. It is amazing, and it helps you just get into the game that much more until the game just takes you out. Whoever did the music did a fantastic job. Listen to the soundtrack, and honestly, I think it'll be worth it for most people.
I've never seen anything like it! I can't tell who won!
If someone was to ask me if they should play Lair for the PlayStation 3, I would probably tell them no, not to waste your time with this game. Even though there's some great aspects to it, and it can be fun at times, there's just so much stuff going against it. You know, the bad frame rates, the constant interruption of gameplay just makes the game just a chore, and it just ends up being horrendous and aggravating. Like, I want to enjoy this game, and I wish Factor 5 was still around so they could make some Star Wars games, but they're not. And this game ended up being terrible. And if, you know, anyone that thinks it's bad, I can agree with you. Anyone that thinks it's good, I can see your points, but I probably ultimately at the end of the day would not play this game or recommend someone else not to play this game, because I played the game twice actually. You know, I'm glad it's in my collection. It'll always have that kind of fondness for me that, you know, how bad a game's launch could be. It's just that it was so bad they could not bounce back, and it's a shame that company's gone. That's my verdict on this game. Hopefully, you know, let me know what your verdict is. Did you actually enjoy this game? And would you know, do you want to see a Lair 2? But anyway, hopefully you enjoy this review. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell if you want to see more content like this. Stay safe, stay retro. I do hope you find the games you're looking for, and we'll see you in the next video. Later.